Yes, mtazamaji, you're still watching your number one morning dose of news. My name is Tony Mirigi. Tuko na Remy, pia tuko na Brian Amoy this morning. Before tuweze kwenda mbali katika upande wa barabara this morning on the right check, allow us to pose for you the question of the day. Tukuulize, be part of this amazing conversation on Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, kila mahali. Utuambie, je, katika maeneo yako, je, SHA inafanya kazi mtazamaji? Swali ya siku tunakuuliza asubuhi ya leo mtazamaji. Utuambie, what is your experience with SHA? Utuambie this morning, alafu baadaye tutakuwa tuna sample feedback zako mtazamaji. Remember, it's a beautiful morning and be part of this amazing conversation. Utuambie, what is your personal experience with SHA? Remember, on the 5 things this morning, Amoy mentioned ya kwamba SHA to finalize payment claims in 3 weeks. That is something that you must know this morning in 5 things. That's why you're asking you, what is your experience with SHA? And before I even go to the other side, niwaambie Mombasa Road na Kaji na Thika Road, let me pose the same question to my colleagues here, that is Remy and Amoy. Yeah, what is your personal experience with SHA? Before mtazamaji atuambie maoni yake. Amoy.
Honestly, I haven't used that.
Hujawahi tumia?
Ever since Igonini. I don't think I've been sick.
Okay.
That I've needed it.
Amen.
Yeah.
All right, Remy.
In all honesty, I also have not used it.
Yeah.
God is good, I've not been unwell.
Okay.
To give you, a formidable answer on the same.
So hujawahi tumia SHA?
No.
Mtazamaji, hata mimi pia, let me just echo to what my friends wamesema hapa. Hata mimi pia sijawahi tumia SHA, lakini you can tell us what's your experience this morning. What is your experience with SHA? And then later on, we shall be sampling your feedback regarding the question of the day. Now, allow me niweze kutoka polepole hapa jamani, na chai yangu nikitembea polepole, nikufahamishe jinsi barabara zilivyo jamani. Mtazamaji, naanza na barabara ya kwanza asubuhi ya leo. That is barabara ya Lang'ata Road, just to paint a picture for you how the situation iko. Things are moving swiftly katika barabara ya Lang'ata mtazamaji, just in case unatumia hii barabara kuelekea kazini. Hili ni hakikisho, this is an assurance ya kwamba hakuna msongamano wa magari katika barabara ya Lang'ata mtazamaji. Lakini katika roundabout ya Lang'ata, that's where the issue is, the jam. Alright, jam imeanza kupile up mtazamaji katika roundabout ya Lang'ata, just in case you are using Lang'ata Road kuelekea kazini. Katika roundabout ya Lang'ata ndio jam imeanza kupile up, lakini in case utoke mapema, because they say mapema ndio best, I can assure kwamba utafika kazini haraka iwezekanavyo. The situation same applies katika barabara ya Lusaka Road. That is the situation. There is no traffic this morning katika barabara ya Lusaka Road, and also things are moving swiftly in that barabara mtazamaji. I can see katika barabara mbalimbali hapa Nairobi mambo ni mazuri na hakuna msongamano wa magari mtazamaji, as you can see, just trying to paint a picture katika barabara za hapa Nairobi. Now, let's shift our gears from hii barabara. Let's take a look at the next road just to update, because my name is Tony. Na kazi yangu, it is to make sure kwamba I act as an intermediary between you and your boss, because mimi sitaki mkosane na mdosi wako, na kuambia the easiest and the busiest ways to use this morning. Now, let's take a look at Thika Road mtazamaji. They term it as the busiest road in Nairobi, Kenya. Barabara ambayo mtazamaji inatumika na mamilioni ya Wakenya kuelekea kazini, lakini ninavyoangalia katika TV yangu asubuhi ya leo katika hii screen, hakuna msongamano wa magari katika barabara ya Thika mtazamaji. Hivi ndivyo hali ilivyo, just in case unatumia hii barabara ambayo inatumika na Wakenya wengi sana mtazamaji. Hivi ndivyo hali ilivyo katika barabara hii ya Thika Road. Hakuna msongamano wa magari wowote katika barabara hii. Same applies katika pia barabara ya Kamiti Road, pia hakuna msongamano wa magari, na hivi ndivyo hali ilivyo mtazamaji. Utuambie tu ukiwa na watch, ukiwa wapi, alafu baadaye nitakuwa pia nawafahamisha Wakenya wengi hali ilivyo. Baadaye nitakuwa navuka milima na mabonde hadi kaunti ya Mombasa, kaunti ya Kisumu, kaunti ya Nakuru. Mimi nakuomba mtazamaji, chukua simu yako, fungua kamera, record video, nitumie picha, uniambie Tony, I'm watching from this county and this is the situation. Mimi kazi yangu kama captain, just to update you, niyo mambo ikue nywe, kusikue na shida yote. Manake mimi sitaki mkosana na mdosi wako kabisa. Brian.
All right, time for Amka Kenya Viral, and of course we take a look at what you're waking up to on the newspapers. We start with the People Daily. Now the top story, I beg your pardon, on the People Daily is failed presidency, a photo of President William Ruto, and it's a story on page 4. Broken pledges, issues to do with affordable housing project facing legal and financial hurdles. Kenyans borrowed billions from the Hustler Fund but defaulted. Higher education funding in limbo. Cost of living has worsened due to heavy taxation and underfunded and chaotic implementation of SHA. Promised that he will cut government spending by 300 billion, but Ruto's international travel, which is 51 trips in 1 year, cost 103 billion Kenya shillings. Public debt shot from 8.63 trillion to over 10 trillion in just a year. Another story making headlines here is intrigues as Raila party pushes Ruto to surrender Sakaja's seat in 2027 poll, and why mini polls could delay. That is, of course, the Attorney General, Lucas Odor. That is a story on page 8 of the People Daily. Another story is how 529 pieces of railway land were grabbed, in time to make us, to help us make sense of this conversation here. And what is making headlines on the newspapers is Ken Babu. He's the national youth leader at the Amka Kenya. Thank you so much for making time. How are you?
Thank you, Fran.
Yeah.
I've been well.
You're doing well.
Thank you for being here.
Asante sana.
What did you experience? Tony is reporting traffic and all that. I don't know.
It's good that I was just walking in while Tony was talking about the traffic and everything, but we blame the regime.
Yeah,
we put it all
everything
on
we say, we blame the government in the traffic. All right.
All right, Babu, I don't know. Looking at the People Daily, top story here, of course, we want to make sense of what is happening. And you're talking about a failed presidency. Do you agree that the Kenya Kwanza regime or the Ruto presidency is a failed presidency?
Yeah, Brian, I totally agree with that reporting, and I would like to say that so long as good people decide to remain silent, it's at that point that bad people take up positions of leadership and ends up messing up the nation, and that's what we are experiencing right now. The Kenya Kwanza regime has proven beyond reasonable doubt that bad people can take power and mess up the entire nation. And that is what President William Ruto currently is doing.
What will you
a
say
regime that cannot be advised, a regime that cannot consult, a regime that cannot take time to listen to the needs and demands of people who put them to power.
What would you describe the state of affairs in the country right now, looking at that particular headline?
The state of our nation right now is very bad. We are doing badly. In fact, I can tell you that for the longest time that I've engaged in politics, in fact, from the time I was born until today, I'm telling you, I've never seen a system of government that we are in right now. If you look at the time of Moi, we say that we are told that Moi was bad, but nobody can say that Moi killed children. Nobody can say that Moi could not listen to them. People say that, well, Mzee was listening, Mzee was taking advices, but what do you have right now? Mr. William Ruto has made a personal initiative to ensure that he goes down with this country. And that's why Kenyans have resolved that this guy deserves a one term. In fact, there is no in the constitution that is, it is indicated that a president should be elected for 2 terms. You are only guaranteed a term. And then if you convince people otherwise, they can decide to give you a 2nd term or not. But in this case, Kenyans have made a resolved decision that William Ruto, a term is enough.
Okay, so, you're talking about a failed presidency, but we really need to be able to point out 1 or 2 things when it comes to the failed presidency itself. What would you say, what would you point out and say, okay, now, based on what I'm able to see, maybe just 2 things, I can confidently say that it is beyond repair and it's totally done.
Brian, once you mess up with the education sector, you've killed everything. Because that is the engine. That is where everything starts and ends. You cannot run a population of illiterates. President William Ruto under Kenya Kwanza regime, first agenda of them was to do away with the easiest and the most affordable education funding. And brought us this NFM and everything. When the students went to the streets and demanded that there be restructuring, they put up a dialogue. Up to date, there has been no report of what the Secretariat of NFM was doing, going around the country and doing benchmarking and everything. The government of Kenya Kwanza intentionally destroyed the education system. You get me? Some that Kibaki worked so hard to give Kenyans. You see, the Kenya Kwanza regime is suffering from the investments of Kibaki. Kibaki gave us free education. We went to school. We got the opportunity to be enlightened, exposed. And now that's why we are asking critical questions and they're getting comfortable with it. Secondly, the economy. Once you interfere with the operations of the economy, you destroy everything. Look at how the set of living, living conditions today. You have 1,000 shillings, you walk in, you just look in, you just view a supermarket. It's done. You've not even touched anything. You have 1,000, you just look, make a turn and look at the supermarket and it's done. Okay. What we are saying is the regime has interfered with critical areas of this country. Okay. That is education, health, and the state of economy.
I want to highlight, one aspect in this article. It says that with the handshake between ODM, Raila Odinga, and this particular regime, that analysts believe it is actually there. Raila is there to see President Ruto fail. Because if his government works, then ODM leader Raila Odinga, whatever he espouses, will not be working. Right. So what do you think about that perception?
For people to say that Raila is there to see President Ruto fail, I think for me, from where I sit, is not a right statement. Because anyway, this regime had failed even before Raila came in. In fact, Raila came in out of the failure of this regime.
Is he making it better or worse?
He's not making it better anyway. He's not doing anything to make it better or worse.
So that's what the analyst is saying. That is what they're pointing out.
It worse.
No, he's not making it worse because it's already bad. Whether he's in or outside, the regime is doing nothing. Get that? So Raila's involvement in the regime, in fact, they are maintaining the status quo. In fact,
you say it is inconsequential.
It doesn't add salt to the water. Get that?
So what's his role then? Is he, if he's not making it better or worse, then the memorandum, the MOU, is it null and void?
The memorandum did not make any sense to any Kenyan. Memorandum, if you look at it, because after the signing of memorandum, that is when Albert Ojwang was killed in the police cells. After the signing of memorandum, we are in the process of burying over 40 young people who died on Sabasaba. And if you look at the 10-point agenda, brutal killing is amongst the issues that they raised that should not happen. So what is the essence of having a document written on, a document that does not actually work towards ensuring that there is sanity and things are working very well? The involvement of ODM as a party and Raila Odinga in Kenya Kwanza affairs has interfered largely with the operationalization of Kenya Kwanza regime. Okay. But what we agree on, that whether Raila joined or not, Kenya Kwanza, led by William Ruto, had already failed.
Okay. All right. Let me just read a comment in regards to this story, a failed presidency on DAP. DAP party wametweet this morning wakasema kwamba failed presidency, the collective responsibility of Kenyans is to take Ruto home and restore the dignity, value and integrity of the presidency. That's a comment about DAP party wametweet on Twitter, that is X, na wakaweka picha fulani hapo ya People Daily. But now, before tuleke kwa hii story, kwa muda ambao umebakia kwa Rais William Ruto before atoke mamlakani, People Daily wame-analyze story kadhaa za broken pages, that is from affordable housing to Kenyans borrowed billions of hustler to other stories. Kwa muda ambao amebaki nao, anaweza jikwamua?
No. At this point, President Ruto cannot do anything that will salvage him. Because, let me tell you, Brian, there are many families, any day, any time they wake up, they look at the back of their houses and what they see are graves. These are people that will never heal from atrocity that President William Ruto caused them. Get that? The family of Ojwang today, Denzel Omondi, Rex Masai Mams, always in the court. She doesn't live in Nairobi, but she has to come to court every day, trying to fight for justice for her son who was brutally killed by a regime that could not take time and listen. What I'm saying is this. These 2 years, the time that is remaining, we have around 700 days or something. The regime cannot redeem itself in terms of restructuring SHA so that Kenyans can go and get affordable health care. Well, they cannot restructure education funding model. They cannot do anything today to ensure that there is enough creation of employment for the young people.
Okay. Let's now shift our gears to page 2 of People Daily. Jana tuliangazia story ambayo viongozi wanafunzi walikuwa wanamkutano pale UON, and as you can see on People Daily page 2, they are saying learners embrace calls for national dialogue. Amwai Remi na mgeni wetu siku leo. Tumekuwa na divided parts za Kenya. They're talking about dialogue. Do you think it's high time we need dialogue as a country? Because Gen Z were divided in two sides. They are saying we are leaderless, we are tribeless, and other terms. Hizi dialogue ambazo wanazitafuta ni kwa manufaa yao wenyewe for personal interest ama ni kwa manufaa ya Mkenya kawaida?
You see, Babu, these are student leaders that were speaking yesterday.
Yeah.
They're calling for the national dialogue and saying we agree with Raila Odinga that actually it's time for us to sit down.
Look at those students. You know, you people, you operate from this space, but from where I operate, I interact with these guys. Look at these guys. These are the same group of people who are at the ODM party, ODM headquarters yesterday, with Sifuna under the patronage of young captains. Get that? You see, let me tell you, and even Sifuna yesterday, let me just put context. Even yesterday, I saw ODM SD Sifuna saying that there's an urgent need of this dialogue. Do you remember in 2024, William Ruto called for a dialogue? And Sifuna was on the front line telling William Ruto that there's no need for dialogue, he needs to go home, he needs to resign. So, from where I sit, for them, it's all about who is calling for it. Not the essence, not the need, the urgency of that issue. You get that? Because if it's the same SD who said that William Ruto, there's no need of William Ruto calling for a dialogue and he should go home, today is telling us that because Raila is calling for a dialogue, Raila has looked at it from a broader base and there's urgent need for it. Let me tell you, my brother, when student leaders, the same student leaders, went on the streets to agitate against new funding model, do you know what President Ruto did with this government? They formed a secretariat committee of student leaders themselves to go around the country taking tea and mandazi in pretense of collecting views of other students to provide an opportunity, alternative. Up to date, there is no report that says that we can do this contrary or in exchange of a new funding model. NADCO report, I was part of young people who submitted before the NADCO committee at Bomas of Kenya, and we gave concrete submissions on unemployment, inclusion, reforms in IBC. Up to date, NADCO has not been implemented fully. In fact, if President Ruto and Raila Odinga, now that they are the co-administrators of NADCO, this is the time
to
implement the NADCO.
This is like, them quote-unquote being captured. There's no...
That is the point.
That's what you're saying.
That is the point. If they have intentions to have Kenyans, move forward, they have a whole document in the name of NADCO. Okay. They should implement it. And let me just finish up on the issue of conclave. You know, for conclaves, we only know conclaves happens when we are electing a pope, and we have one already in the office. Okay. There is nothing like generational conclave that will provide any change to the problems or solutions to the issue that we are addressing right now. You cannot go in a room with 1,880 people to discuss how to end police brutality. It cannot happen. You cannot go into a room to discuss with 18 people how to create employment, how to revive SHA. You get that? How to stop police brutality. Those are things that you look into them and you act as a president.
All right, sir. Tony.
All right, Mzamaji, now let me now plug you with a story they're supposed to be reading this morning, because kuna story ambayo this morning imenibamba sana na itakuwa vizuri sana mimi nikufahamishe about People Daily page 18. Now, kwa muda mrefu wanaume wamekuwa wakichukuliwa kama watu ambao wana cheat sana. This page 18 highlights about the increase in number of ladies cheating. And there is a question wamekuuliza hapo jamani. Infidelity, are women the bigger cheaters? Now, allow me to give you the signs that you will know your partner is cheating this morning. Ya kwanza ni changes in behavior and communication, increased secrecy, change in routine, emotional distance, change in communication, among others. Lakini his story ya infidelity, are women the bigger cheaters? I will be highlighting it at 9 a.m. in Deep with my gang, that is Yvonne and Tom Musembi. So make sure you watch Amka Trend Talks for this story. Nitaiongelea sana page 18 of People Daily. But now, allow me also to plug with the next story, page gani ingine, page 20. Rapper express soft side of fatherhood. In case you are just planning kuingia katika fatherhood, ukuwe mzazi hivi karibuni, kuna story ambayo David Maeri, popularly known as Word Blender, is using the music platform to spread positive masculinity among fathers. A very beautiful story that you're supposed to read on page 20. But this story as well, nitakuwa naiongelea deeply from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. on Amka Trend Talks. Mimi, Yvonne na Tom Musembi. Tupatane baadaye tuongelee haya maswala ya wasichana kucheat nchini Kenya. Haya.
All right,
Wasemaje?
I was a little bit afraid that you're going to pose that question. Here.
No, sitauliza. Actually, nimeuliza ready kwa video yangu.
Ngoja uniulize kaza, hey,
Sitakuuliza.
All right, time to take a look at what the Standard is saying this morning. Remy, sorry.
All right, if I could just have
just
a paper here.
They
Right,
say
so
the
let's
big
take a
con.
look at, yes, Tony,
All right.
indeed, the big con. Now we have a picture here of the DIG, Deputy Inspector General of Police, Eliud Lagat, lied to the country about his stepping aside to pave the way for investigations into the death of Albert Ojwang at Central Police Station. In a June 16 statement, Lagat announced he had opted to step aside to allow investigations to proceed unhindered. But fresh court filings reveal a different story, that he merely applied for an 18-day annual leave, approved the same day by Police IG Douglas Kanja, who wished him a restful break. In a sworn reply, Lagat now insists he never vacated office nor appointed a replacement, contradicting his own public statement. The open lie has reignited questions about his integrity, transparency, truthfulness as a civil servant, and that story is on page 4 of the Standard.
All right, let's take a look at what you're waking up to in the Daily Nation. UDA bigwigs plot exodus already under siege from a rebel faction allied to ousted Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua. The woes of the governing United Democratic Alliance are set to worsen, with top former loyalists, including the Senate Majority Whip, joining the rebellion. The man tasked with whipping members of to toe the line has declared the party dead. This is a story on page 7, and of course you can see faces of those individuals that seem to be rebelling against the party. That is the ruling party, UDA. Another story here is free at last on death row in Saudi Arabia for over a decade, dreading a death with the executioner every day. The nightmare for Stephen Munyaho finally ended yesterday when he was freed after dramatic negotiations with family of a Yemeni citizen whose death following a feud led to his conviction. And of course, we also have 25,000 promoted teachers lament over elusive new higher salaries, and state slaps more protest suspects with their terrorism charges. I want to wind up here. Let's take your comment on the issue to do with Lagat, and because you just raised an issue about the death of Albert Ojwang when we were starting.
This is what we are saying. You know, so such like issues cannot be discussed in a conclave in the name or in the pretext of intergenerational dialogue. Albert won't be there anyway. If there was anything to be done in terms of dialogue, and if the people should be dialogued with the likes of Albert's, Rex Masai's, Denzel Omonis of this world. But they are not there. So what we are saying is this government do not have even a drop of shame in terms of operations and respect the constitution. If this fella said, in fact, they even released a letter signed that he had stepped aside. And then we are now being treated to circus that he took some leave or something. This is what we are calling out and saying that from the top to bottom, the Kenya Kwanza regime is rotten. And it should not be trusted by anything or with anything. If this is now the Deputy Inspector General, somebody who by any chance can be an Inspector General, misbehaving this way, what do you expect from some small boy and some small fella who is aligned with the Kenya Kwanza regime?
Were we taken for a ride?
So what we are saying, we were taken for a ride, and this is a clear indication that the Kenya Kwanza regime, right from President William Ruto coming down, do not respect any Kenyan in terms of management of this country and anything that is being done. But let me say, so the youth must not allow themselves to be reduced into worshippers of political personalities.
Can it be avoided?
It can be avoided. And it can be avoided by ensuring that this nonsensical issue called generational conclave be done away with. In fact, it's the young people we should, my stand is clear on this issue. We do not need this generational conclave to discuss critical issues that have been devolving, interfering with this nation. What I'm saying is this.
30 seconds.
30 seconds here. We must put ourselves away from political cultism and personalities, so that if Raila Odinga or William Ruto or whoever it is gets out of the space, we do not remain like orphans. We must, the young people must step up and occupy the spaces. Just briefly, as I finish up, in 1976, when young people in South Africa rose up to demand accountability of the government,